When a doctor becomes a criminal, he can do a very good job at committing a crime. Who said that? Sherlock Holmes. In The Speckled Band, one of the great Sherlock Holmes stories. Well, of course, therein lies a story. Doctors Pritchard and Palmer were not fictional characters. They were real-life doctors. And Conan Doyle, of course, who was a physician, the author of the Sherlock Holmes stories, was very up to date on what was happening in the medical community, including murders. Both Dr. Pritchard and Palmer were murderers, not with knives, not with guns, but with poisons. And their cases captured the imagination of the public in the 19th century. There were media reports about the inquiries into deaths. Well, first of all, Dr. Pritchard. His wife started to have strange symptoms, vomiting all the time, and his mother-in-law came to care for her. She started to get sick. Both of them died. The authorities received an anonymous letter, thought to be from a neighbor who was a physician, saying that these deaths were not natural. So there was an inquest and an autopsy, and tartar emetic was found in the bodies. This was a substance used in those days as a medicine. It was based on antimony compounds, antimony tartrate, which makes people vomit. And it was believed that when you vomited, you got rid of toxins in your body. Well, turned out that not only was antimony compound found in the body, but aconite as well. Aconite was also used by physicians in those days because it can cause a fever. It was also thought that fever would expel poisons from the body. Aconite is very interesting because it comes from the Aconitum plant. And the roots of that plant can be ground up to make a powder. It contains a very, very toxic compound called aconitine. That is what causes the sweating and it causes the fevers. But of course, it can also cause death in a higher dose. As Paracelsus told us 500 years earlier, only the dose makes the poison or the drug. Anyway, what was the motive of Dr. Pritchard? Oh, an age-old motive. He had fallen in love, this time with a 15-year-old helper in his house, a housekeeper, and decided to do away with his wife. He had told the girl that he would marry her after his wife was gone. He ended up on the gallows, the last ever public execution in Scotland, witnessed by thousands of people. Dr. Palmer, oh, he was another case. This time the motive wasn't love. This time the motive was age-old again, money. He was a gambler. He had lost money on the horses, and one day he went to the horses with his friend John Cook. He lost, but Cook had a great day. 3,000 pounds at that time, a tremendous amount of money. The next day, before he had picked up his winnings, he started to get sick. Palmer, being a physician, looked after him, and he started to get sicker and sicker. Whenever he ate, he got really sick. He got better when he wasn't eating. And it wasn't long before he got so sick that he wasn't able to go to pick up his winnings, and Palmer offered to do that, which he did. A couple of days later, the friend John Cook died. It kind of seemed strange that he would have gotten sick like that, and his stepfather thought that this was really mysterious. He insisted on an autopsy, which they did. And they didn't find anything in the man's stomach. But an expert toxicologist testified that the symptoms under which John Cook died were typical of the symptoms of strychnine poisoning. Now, strychnine, another interesting plant chemical, it comes from the Nux vomica plant, which has fruits on it, and those fruits have seeds, have a high amount of strychnine. Terrible material. But in small doses, it was used in those days by physicians because it can act as a stimulant. But in an overdose, it causes convulsions. No strychnine was found, but the toxicologist had such a renommee that the jury believed his diagnosis, that the guy died from convulsions due to strychnine. And some other information came to light during the inquest that his wife had also died under seemingly strange conditions, and 4 of his children, infants, had also died. And M.A. testified that Palmer had said that he was unable to take care of his children because they cost too much money. So based on all of this, although the evidence was circumstantial, he was convicted and he also was hanged. Well, the interesting sort of finale to this story is that, as I said, of course, Conan Doyle was a physician. And in this classic quote from Sherlock Holmes, he said that Pritchard and Palmer were at the height of their profession. They were not. They certainly were not famous doctors of any kind. So this is one of the first times that Conan Doyle had Sherlock Holmes make a mistake.